I am 30 years old, my girlfriend Laura is 28 years old. We have been in a relationship for a little over 4 years now. Before we started dating, Laura was married. I was also in a relationship of my own at the time, with no particular prospects for anything serious with a married woman. She was much older than me. When we met and started to communicate with Laura, at first everything went well and we were just friends, but then we started to communicate closer and fell in love. It was mutually decided that we do not need such happiness. I did not want to break her family for the sake of unclear what. At that time she lived with her husband. But in the end everything turned out differently. We couldn't resist, we fell in love with each other and everything turned around. For a while we were both in 2 relationships at the same time. I even liked it. It was a great boost to my self-esteem and constantly gave me a sense of euphoria, although at times it was not easy to maneuver. And then one day it was time to make a decision. It was impossible to sit on 2 chairs at the same time and I had to choose between 2 girls. By that time I was almost out of love with the previous lady and my feelings for Laura were much stronger and the relationship with her looked much more promising, so I separated from my ex and a week later Laura left her husband. She did. Laura and I started living together almost immediately. Gradually the situation was complicated by the fact that Laura began to be jealous of my colleagues at work. And since then, she has been very jealous of me and this jealousy runs through our entire relationship. I don't like it. Apparently, it was the beginning of our relationship that had a big impact on it. Back then, we were basically cheating on each other and on our former official partners too. Then, because of Laura, I had to stop communicating with my very good friend because we used to date and Laura was always very jealous of my exes. I was given an ultimatum of, it was either me or the exes, so I had to cut off here too, and I was going to move to another country, change jobs. When I moved to another country, it was easier in terms of jealousy, because my exes were not there, but Laura still continued to be jealous of me now with her new girlfriends. In the end, at some point, I just began to conceal, downplay my communication with any other girls, even the most innocent and friendly, working because I felt that any interaction with the opposite sex causes her jealousy and tension. This created a vicious cycle. The less I said, the worse it got. Laura reacted to every mention of a new female name, simply because it was new and dangerous. Maybe if I said everything at once, she would get used to it and things would be better, but hell knows. It would only increase the number of complaints. But despite some difficulties, 2 years ago I proposed to Laura. I thought it would help, give some assurance that I wanted to be with her and that she was more important to me than others. But it didn't make any difference, and another vicious circle began to form. The more jealousy, restrictions, and control she had, the less I felt for Laura, and the more I started to look at other girls, which led to more jealousy and so on. I am not jealous of jealousy at all, and most of my partners even resented me for it. In general, I really like beautiful girls, and recently, after such restrictions in the relationship, my attraction to the side has worsened even more. But in spite of this, during the whole time of our relationship, I have never cheated on Laura. A little over a year ago, Laura moved to my country. She took a stand for our relationship and moved in with me. And in this she is very much to her credit and a great investment in the relationship. I, in turn, helped her with everything, including financially, and she lived in my apartment. But this move of hers did not bring the expected relief. On the contrary, it only got worse. During these 2 years, I was already thoroughly beaten by her jealousy and her desire to control me everywhere, so I felt less for Laura. Then, when she moved in with me, I had to change my life as a bachelor and reorganize my time. I have many hobbies, most notably music, and music lessons are essential for me. Now that Laura was living with me, she was taking up a lot more of my time, attention, and support. She needed the latter especially because she found herself alone in a country completely unfamiliar to her. As a result, I had to cut back considerably on time for myself and my hobbies, which was very demoralizing. It wasn't fun either because we were living in the same small room at the time where I had lived alone before, and for the first few weeks Laura didn't work and stayed at home for the most part. All this led to the fact that I became very irritated with her. Often, even for trifles, I would leave the house in the morning and just boil with anger, which had never happened to me before. Naturally, more than once I thought about breaking up with her and dreamed of other girls. Looking at this situation now, I realized that I behaved in a bad way and that I should have been more sensitive, understanding, and patient. But frankly, in our couple I am always the one, and sometimes even my patience comes to an end. After 2 months we moved into a bigger apartment. There we were able to separate into different rooms and establish our own personal space and time. Laura started working, made friends, had her own hobbies, and began to demand less of my attention. I accepted the fact that I now had less free time to myself. Life seemed to be getting better. Then one night Laura started asking me if I had ever thought about leaving her. Her friends had recently broken up and she was starting to think about it. I tried to avoid a direct answer. I tried to change the subject. I started to get annoyed. Then she did get me to admit that yes, I wanted to, and then one of the first big fights in our relationship happened. She said she never had any such thoughts, even when we were fighting hard, and how could I even think that? Then Loa started accusing me of never saying anything to her. It's really often easier for me to keep quiet if I don't like something, but it's not critical to me than to make a big deal out of it with her. She, on the contrary, if she just doesn't like something about what I do or how I do it, she tells me right away. However, this does not prevent her from keeping silent for 2 hours if she is offended by something, and I have to ask for a long time what exactly was offended. Word by word, we got to the point that I liked other girls, and in general we discussed my attraction to others and her jealousy. It turned out that Laura could never fully trust me, and that this was also why she was so jealous of me. And in general, she has gotten to know me well over the years and has learned to sense when I am interested in others. We also sorted out that my attraction is not something serious, that it is not even a crush, and that it is not a threat to our relationship, but that it is still a part of my personality and my nature. I try to contain it. Then we reconciled for a while. A few months later, we were at my very good friend's party. Laura and I had a fight the morning of that day, so the relationship was chilly, but we cooled down a bit during the day, so it was fine in the evening. She left in the middle of the evening because she wasn't feeling well. It was a short walk home. I didn't want to leave, so I stayed at the party. Laura seemed to leave quietly, but 40 minutes later sent me a message full of passive aggression. She accused me of being indifferent to her. I thought I had nothing to lose and decided to stay until the end of the party. There, a little later, I met a very pretty young woman. We talked very passionately for about half an hour or so, and she said things that were like a balm to my soul, that she preferred to give people their own space, that sometimes you have to leave your partner alone, that you don't have to push. I don't know how she did it, but she hit me right in my most painful place, and I, of course, became very fond of her. And we had some very interesting discussions in general. I missed having nice conversations so much. After the party, I got the number of the new lady through friends, dropped her a link to the movie we were discussing, and she directly offered to watch it together at her house. I was even dumbfounded by such an unconcealed approach. I was very flattered, and the offer was very tempting, but I wrote that I have a girlfriend and I cannot afford it. However, I suggested we meet for coffee, and we met a few days later, had a warm conversation, and parted ways peacefully. I didn't text her again. I was not interested in a serious relationship with her, and just sex I could not afford. She then wrote to me once after a while, but I did not meet with her, referring to the busyness. I'm so loyal and honest. A few days later, while I was at training, Laura got into my smartphone and read all my correspondence, both with my girlfriend and with my close friends, where I discussed my relationship. I came home and she was dressed, gave me back my ring, and said that until she finds an apartment, she would stay with me, but that it would not last long. Everything she read from me, she didn't like. I don't remember exactly how it happened, but we settled it surprisingly quickly. Apparently, I was able to reassure Laura that she was more important to me than anyone else and that there was nothing wrong with coffee. Later, in one of such quarrels, Laura said that she couldn't break up with me, and even though she wanted to, she couldn't do it herself. And that she can't act like me either, even though she tried, meaning flirting or communicating romantically with others. After the story, Laura started seeing a psychologist. She first worked through some childhood issues, then they worked on her jealousy of me. After a few months they finished the sessions. Laura really felt better, became less anxious. Her psychologist said she was now healthy. Our relationship improved too. After that, life went on as usual for a while. It was good and bad. We fought regularly for various reasons, but life went on. The biggest fights have still been over jealousy again. The last one was because of a friend's girlfriend. We are together in a collective engaged in music. She is 10 years older than me, lives in a civil marriage. She has 3 small children. She's beautiful, my type, and very charming. And I liked her as soon as I joined the team 2 years ago, and since then my attraction to her has only increased. We don't talk to each other much, but when we do, we treat each other with mutual, I think, sympathy. I can't say for sure if there is something on her part. In real life, we both touch each other casually, and when the conversation comes up, it continues with mutual interest. But there have been no concrete signs of attention from her side. Maybe I'm just flattering myself, but it still seems to me that this liking is mutual and we're both just purposely holding back from getting more intimate so we don't do anything stupid. At least that's what I'm doing on my end. And it's this uncertainty that ends up causing me to get really good at her. She's always keeping her distance, slipping away, and thus keeping my interest up. Laura knows that I sympathize with this musician for a long time. She has read our correspondence several times, saw the hearts and warm tone of my messages. We had scandals because of this, and just because of her, they were the most. Our biggest fight with Laura was 6 months ago, and we almost broke up. I congratulated that girl on her birthday. Laura once again looked at my phone. We started to fight. I really said everything that I thought, and for the first time I told her directly that no one has ever infringed on me as much as she does, that I can't take it anymore and I want to break up. Then the degree decreased, we talked more constructively and came to certain agreements that I try to communicate less with other girls, do not create situations where close contact is possible, and that I myself do not seek such opportunities. In general, I started to do such a mental work on myself. Here I started to take more seriously, really limited contacts, and in general, it became easier for me and Laura, and our relationship became better. We started to quarrel less, treat each other better. Since then, things have been more or less stable. We fight less, but things are still going up and down in my head. Recently, Laura resumed talking about our wedding. We put it off indefinitely after all the relationship problems, and it's unraveled the whole chain of thoughts in my head again. She says we need to plan. She talks about who we're going to invite, where we're going to have it, and I realize that I don't want any of that anymore. That Laura is not the woman I want to spend the rest of my life with. And it's not just jealousy. I feel like even with all the jealousy and control issues out of the way, I still don't want to be in this relationship. And hand on heart, I can't say that I still love her. And there are so many other girls around, so many new and interesting things. I want interesting communication, light, warm. And lately after this prison, I am more and more attracted to the idea of a free relationship. From that right now to finish everything, I am largely held back by material factors. We live together, we have common property, we will have to separate. Although, of course, it would be much cheaper and much less problematic than getting married and then divorcing. I'm not sure about family forever. In this case, after all, you shouldn't get married when there is no certainty or even a lot of doubt. But the truth is that things were not always as bad in my and Laura's relationship as one might get the impression. There were so many good days when we lived in peace and harmony, genuinely loved each other, and everything was wonderful. And they still are. And that makes breaking up more difficult too. When it seems like I've already made the decision to break up, a few good days go by and I thaw out and start thinking along the lines of, oh, maybe it's not that bad? Sure, I haven't behaved perfectly either, and I can be a pain in the ass, but I've given up on saying anything to her at all, or correcting her even if she's doing something wrong or ineffective. Her life, she'll figure it out for herself. Laura is actually a very nice person. She's beautiful, smart, and loyal, and I'm sure many people would be happy with her. For me, however, the results of the relationship left me with not much in common. We have almost no common interests, which is very important to me. We met through music, but she soon stopped doing it altogether. She sometimes says that she wants to, but it does not go beyond words. Even though we have already bought 2 instruments for her. The sport I do, she does not like, and I do not want to go with her to dance, as I do not have enough free time for anything. As a result, our time together is reduced mainly to soap operas and household chores. It's also very important for me that my life partner is like-minded and understands me well. Laura and I are very different in character, and so from the beginning we were not always on the same page, but then helped in love. Then it got worse as time went on. Sometimes if I tell her something, she doesn't listen to me and gets distracted by something. I don't like the indifference. At the moment I work in science, and moving from place to place and experience in different countries is almost vital for a career here. But she is alarmed by this prospect. Laura, she, in contrast, wants to settle down sooner rather than later. She wants kids and really wants to buy her own house, apartment. And I don't need all that yet. In general, problems almost everywhere except sex, but you can't get enough of it. You can live like this and you can live a long time. But I don't want to. The problem is even worse because Laura is forcing the issue of marriage. I'm delaying it as much as I can, but it can't be done indefinitely, and I still can't decide what to do. My friends recommended that I honestly tell Laura that I'm not ready to get married to her, but then there's a very good chance that our relationship will end right away. That's kind of what I want, but it's always hard to leave someone. And yet I'm more afraid that I'll have to marry her and live like that for the rest of my life. So I guess I need to get in the mood to talk seriously. I doubt whether our relationship has a future and whether it is necessary to save it somehow. And if so, is there any way to do it?